Listeners, my name is Shannon Cooney from Merrick Property Group Real Estate Agency and a very proud sponsor of the Para Cave podcast. If you own a property in the Penrith LGA or Lower Blue Mountains and would like to know what it's worth in today's market, give me a call on 0421 588 445.
Broadcasting live from the Para Cave. Hello and welcome to another bumper episode of the Para Cave podcast. My name is Troy Warner and I'll be your host this week and every week. And this week it is the penultimate week of the podcast for year 2022. And we're going to do a little bit of a collaboration of some Eels players, the best of the Eels players that I've had on the podcast in 2022, celebrating, of course, coinciding with the 75th year anniversary of the Eels. And as I said, a collection of interviews today from those guests that I've had on the podcast in 2022. And today you're going to hear from Stuart Kelly, Kirisome Auvaa, David Penna, Pat Richards, Tim Smith, Lee Oudenryn, John Simon, Isaac de Gois, Justin Horo, and Dallas Weston. All players that have played for the Parramatta Eels, and all the stories that you will hear are about playing at the Parramatta Eels during their careers in the 90s, 2000s, that range of time. So you'll hear some great stories there. You would have obviously maybe heard the podcast earlier on back in the year, but these are just some grabs from those chats, some really interesting chats about their careers at Parramatta that I thought you would like put together. So we're going to put that one together today. And as I said, this is the second last week of the podcast for year 2022. This is all brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club in the club shop and also online at www.parramattaleagues.com.au. So check that one out. Also a shout out to co-sponsors Shannon Cooney, who you heard at the top of the podcast, from the Merrick Property Group, the Stubby Club as well. Look, Christmas is just around the corner. It is not that far away. For that best present for that sports fanatic in your life, the Stubby Club has a huge range of sports merch and gifts to choose from. And now is the time to head to thestubbyclub.com.au and remember to use your Paracave discount code at the checkout for a 10% discount. Any discount at this time of year is going to come in handy, especially with Christmas coming around the corner. So head to that website. Get some sports merch for those that are in your life and that you have to get presents for. Not only NRL, but AFL, NFL, EPL, you name it. The Stubby Club has it. Some great products there. A huge range. So check that website out. And don't forget to use your Paracave discount code. And also Bo Cook from Loan Market, your local Penrith mortgage expert. Everything, Bo and his team look after everything from first home loans, refinancing, and your current home loans as well. Bo Cook and his team, he is the man. They are the people with the help and the answers. How do I know? Well, Bo helped myself and my wife Amanda with our home loan, so we have that personal experience of what Bo and his team can do for you during these difficult financial times and get the best deal for you. You can contact Bo today on 0401 213 236 and get in contact today for a free chat and see what Bo and his team can do for you. And if you do contact Bo, let him know that you heard it here on the Paracave podcast. Thank you to all the sponsors. With your support, it helps the podcast grow and reach more people, which is much appreciated. But enough of me talking. Let's get into the episode 120, the penultimate episode of the season, with all those para legends that I mentioned just before. Some great chats, some great insights into their careers at Parramatta, and listen to their rugby league story. So, as Hindy says,
get a beer, coffee, whatever you want.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And let's get straight into it. And this is Stuart Kelly, taken from episode 99 of the podcast.
Sammy Ayub was my manager my career. So basically after that tour, I didn't have a manager, and mate, we were getting phone calls from a heap of clubs. Anyway, there's about 12 different clubs we spoke to. I got player of the tour on that Kangaroo tour, the Junior Roos tour. Mate, Adam Ritson was on it, Benny Eichen, Sean Timmins, Lance Thompson, Nathan Blacklock. Mate, there'll be Shannon Nevin, Shane Dunley. There'll be a few. Owen Craigie.
Yeah, wow.
There's a few others, mate. But I reckon 90% of those players went on to have a decent first grade career or play a fair few games.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it was an unreal side, mate. Anyway, yeah. So I played the tour out of that and spoke to a heap of clubs and just, mate, didn't know where to go or what to do. Anyway, I basically just come down. I saw Parramatta as there was a bit of an opening there in the halves and centres.
Yep.
And they'd bought a few players during the fallout of the Super League war. The four Bulldogs boys, you'd probably remember, Dean Pay, Jared McCracken, Jimmy Dimmick and Jason Smith. Mate, that was a big draw card for me too, having like four quality players lob at a club and sort of starting afresh.
Yep.
Yeah, mate, that's how I ended up there.
Coming from a small country town via the Gold Coast, was it a daunting experience coming to New South Wales?
Yeah, Troy. Yeah, mate. I wouldn't have. If I didn't have a year at the coast, I wouldn't have lasted in Sydney.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen 100 blokes come through that had more talent than me as young blokes from the bush that just sort of can't handle it. And that's nothing against their character or anything. It's just, it's so different. I was lucky enough. I'd met a lovely girl at the coast who moved down to Para with me. I said I wasn't going unless she came, and mate, I'm still married to her happily. So
nice.
She said I better mention her in it.
Well, that's the sort of support that you need, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And like I said, mate, if I didn't have a year at the coast, because the coast back then was like just a big country town. We were in a Coolangatta Tweed there. I actually boarded with Gwenny Ryan, who was the mother of Peter Ryan and Big Petro Ryan, who played for the Bulldogs. And so they had a really good circle of friends that were all league orientated and that, mate. And so it was just like, it was like a big country town at the time, and that just, I'm very grateful for that because it sort of gave me a launching pad to have the sort of confidence and ability to go away and hack it in Sydney, mate.
And as you said, the big Canterbury Four sort of lured you towards Parramatta, Dimmick, Smith, Pay and McCracken.
Yeah, that was a big factor, mate. Yeah,
I could imagine just being like a 20-year-old kid that was sort of like took you under their wings, so to speak. Yeah,
definitely, mate. Yeah, I still regard Jason as the best player I played footy with, mate. And I played with Alf and Lockie and Kevy, and mate, they're outstanding. But I suppose it's just we had this connection that you just run a hole and be in the right spot, and somehow Smithy would find you. And he made me look a lot better than I was plenty of times.
In that 2000 season, you were one of the more experienced players in the team, I guess you could say, having played Origin, but there was a real emergence of young talent coming through, wasn't there? Like Pat Richards, the Hindmarsh brothers, the Kalish brothers, David Wielecki, PJ Marsh. The list goes on.
Luke Burt.
Luke Burt, yeah.
Mate, Hindy and Mickey Vella was another one, and Andrew Ryan were three young fellas. I think they might have made their debuts in 98 or 99. I think it was 98. Anyway, they'd had a couple of seasons under their belt, but definitely those other names, mate, like the outside backs of Freshie Wielecki, Paddy Richards and Birdie were just sort of finding their feet. And we had, mate, I was club captain and captain in the side. I was 24, and Nathan Kalis I'm only a couple of years older than him, and he was a senior player.
Yeah. Basically
by then. And Dino had left. I think Jimmy and Smithy were both still there. And that was sort of the oldest. Dean Skiffaletti was actually there that year too. Yep. He was an old head they bought. I ran into Skiff the other day. Which they really needed. They just really, Quentin Tchaikovsky played a lot of games. I think it was 2000. Chock would have still been there. But you just need those couple of, those few older blokes sprinkled through with that youth. Because as you know, mate, like being young, you take a while to find your feet and be consistent and all that type of thing. And those blokes were honing those skills, but doing it very quickly, and they didn't take long. And it was such a good system Para had there under Brian coming for them young blokes coming through.
What was it like having Brian Smith as a coach? Many I've spoken to have said that he was the best coach that they've played under, although you did get to play under Wayne Bennett at Brisbane. Yeah,
mate, and a lot of people ask me this question, Troy, because I was fortunate enough to play 4 years under Brian and 5 under Wayne. They're very different coaches in how they coach, but Wayne's a very much man management and hands-on, and concentrates on how good his side is a lot, and you work on those. And Brian's a real, this is from my point of view too, and it's my opinion, mate, a real analyzer of the game and a student of the game. And just, mate, I learnt so much of the little things under Brian at that age I was coming through, because like I said, I went there when I was 19.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the game of the little things, and then I learned a lot from Wayne about, sort of the management, more management type things in games, and your mental preparation and things like that. But yeah, mate, they're two great coaches in their own right. They're just different, and I really think if Brian had he got not uptight, but just very serious come semi times and that, mate. I think if he had won one of those comps with St George in 92 or 93, I reckon he might have won a couple more.
Okay.
I just think it would have relaxed him that little bit.
Yep.
And that's nothing against him or his personnel or anything like that, mate. Everyone knew you were nearly on eggshells at times in those big games.
Yep.
Doing training, and he was a perfectionist. So everything had to be perfect, and I just think it might have just dropped it back a level or two to keep everything a little bit calmer and that. Later on.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment. Yep.
And mate, I don't know. I doubt any of that contributed to us not making a grand final or winning one, but it was just something that sort of seeing how Wayne was in those weeks of those big games and that, and just the difference like that, mate. I just really thought, if he had won one of those, it might have
ease the shackles a bit.
Just ease that pressure off him a bit, because mate, the NRL coaches are under the most pressure out of anyone.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, the poor buggers, they get shafted pretty quick if they're not performing these days. But
100%.
Mate. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned before there that you captained the Eels in that 2000 season. That must have been a really special honour, considering that you've had the likes of Price, Edge, Sterling, Kenny, Kalis, captain the club.
Yeah, it was, Troy. it was sort of a bit of a dual role there. It was sort of a club captain, and Nath Kalis was the on-field captain. I don't know. It was just, and I suppose, mate, that's, I don't like to talk myself up, but a little bit of credit to me. Like, I think I always was a pretty good clubman. Like, I always loved being around the boys and would organise things and be a part of anything to do with, making sure everyone's involved from the young fellas. Mate, when we were at Parramatta, Noel Cleal had his house there, and he was the development officer basically there, and he always used to have a couple of young blokes from the bush in his house with him.
Yep.
And mate, once a week or once every couple of weeks, I was only 20, 21 myself, but we'd have those one or couple of young blokes over for tea at our place. Just little things like that.
Yeah.
It just makes a club just tick along so nicely. So yeah, mate, it was a lot of off-field stuff as well as the on-field stuff. But yeah, it was. I felt really privileged to be offered that, and yeah, mate, when you actually do get to run out leading the club out as well, it's extra special, Troy.
Oh. And this part of the chat is taken from episode 112 with Kirisome Auvaa. Was it Coach Brad Arthur who sent you a lifeline in 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anyone else interested in your services at the time there?
I don't think there were many. But BA was, he was the man. He really understood the situation and helping players reform and helping them change through the process. And yeah, he was truthful about the transition and where I'd been and what's expected of the club. And yeah, he really offered that lifeline with a lot of love and care. And I felt that in our meeting when I flew up to meet up with them at the old power training grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really loving bloke, really cared about you as a player, and that's how he coaches as well, and you see that. So yeah, really grateful and thankful to Brad for offering me the second chance to play NRL and continue my career.
Was there much difference between Brad and Madge as coaches, or they're just completely different?
No, there's not much difference really. I kind of was exposed to them when I was at the Storm because they were both at the Storm.
Oh, yeah.
When I was there earlier on and as a young kid. So not much difference. There are some differences in the way they want to play, and their teams to play. But apart from that, it's all hard work, and there's no shortcuts into becoming an NRL player. They got good coaching staff that looks after the joint and the players, and good people behind them to help them coach.
Does BA have a good blow up in the sheds at half time or full time in him?
Oh yeah, there's a good blow up, and I think a lot of coaches. I don't think you'll never miss one from any one of them. But yeah, there's some good blow-ups at training as well with BA.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. To get the job done, no worries. Well, another try we'll talk about and another game we'll talk about is that game against the Broncos up there at Suncorp Stadium in round 25, and I was there, and what a great game it was. It was awesome. You scored the first try, and it was the fastest try in NRL history, so you've got that record. Could you believe that you scored that try so quickly and now you hold an NRL record?
At the other time, I couldn't believe what had happened. Rarely, or if not at all, would I see an offload on the first tackle of the game. And so when I saw it, I was like, wait, I'm going after it. And so, yeah, they took the first hit up, And I remember, I think Cameron King was in there, Janko was in there, um, Kenny Edwards was in that tackle, and I think Vavs as well. And so they really put a shot on. Like the shot was really good, and then I just saw the ball pop out for an offload, and I think his teammates wasn't expecting the ball, and so I was kind of there, just lingering on the side, ready to go back to the 10. And so just as about I was to retreat, the ball came, and I was like, "No, I'm changing." So I quickly pounced on it and just ran for the try line.
Yeah, no, as sitting in the stands down that end, we couldn't believe it either how quickly it was. But how good was Semi Radradra in that game?
Oh, he was phenomenal. He outstanding. Those long range tries, like it's like you were watching like an under 13s player play, like a good under 13s player, and him running full lengths a few times to score his try. You don't see that very often these days, do you?
No, that's it.
He did it a few times in that one game, and yeah, he was strong, quick, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually when you make a break, like you're taught or you're trained to support. And so when I started making his break, I was like, this guy's scoring. He was really good that game.
And that Melbourne semi-final down there at Amy Park, you scored another try again. Us as fans, we thought that you guys won the game because I think one of the Melbourne's tries was off a forward pass because the Eels supporters bay was right in line with it, and we've all blown up about it. As players, what were your thoughts on the game? Do you guys believe that you should have won that game? Were you ripped off in that game?
Yeah. Honestly, we come up against a really good Melbourne team that year, and playing at Amy Park, we knew that the crowd wasn't on our side, and it was going to be a big game. And both teams really played good. They was a low-scoring game again, and so tries were hard to come by, and we felt we played good enough to win. But at the end of the day, rugby league is like that at times, and the ref will always interpret the game the way they think. And again, it's a fast-paced game, and so decisions are going to be made, and they have to be made. And we just, as players, got to play on and to what they deem what is right. And we had another chance the week after to play, but that game was another really tight, good game.
Yeah, as I said, us as fans, we thought that you guys won the game. There was a great try by Will Smith from an inside ball. I think from Mitchell Moses.
I remember they were practicing that during the week, and so I think it was a move we've never done the whole year, and so we kind of the players involved, they were practicing it at training, and when it came off, I was like, what the heck? What?
Yeah.
And
well, that's what you need in semi-finals, isn't it? The stuff that you haven't done during the year.
Yeah.
Chuck it up as a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, and they weren't expecting it, and so I think it was a switch. And there was players running that side, but then he turned it back in. Mitchell Moses turned it back into Will going straight through the middle, and it was a really good try, executed right.
Absolutely. I mean, again, as I said, Parramatta were ripped off. You guys were ripped off. There was the Cooper Cronk, Kenny Bromwich, like the grab to the. I think Cooper had the ball and then sort of gave it to Kenny, and Kenny ran on, and the ref called it play on, and then I think it led to a try.
I think so, because I remember when Kenny, I was on the right side, and when they were coming, offloading it back towards the middle, I kind of was just trailing in case they went through, and they did, and when Kenny got it, I kind of just tried to go over the ball, so I'm under it by the time we both fell. But yeah, it wasn't to be. And Kenny, he got the ball down, and yeah, we knew when he scored that. Oh man, this is tight finish to this game.
Yeah. Nah, that's it. As I said, ripped off. But we'll move on from that one. This part of the chat was taken from episode 115 with David Penna. It's rugby league memory?
Yeah, pretty much. I've got a memory with obviously him taking me to training and then enjoying it, and then I guess as I was playing with the Cabrevale Diggers, which was a club sort of that. So I don't think they're no longer around. The club is. I think they joined forces with another local rugby league club. But yeah, just loved it, mate, and then fell in love with the Eels as a kid, and they were my favourite club. And remember Dad taking me. I guess my fondest memory, I guess, was the first thing was the old Cumberland Oval, where Parramatta's or the stadium sits now, but it used to be Cumberland Oval. And he took me there one day and chucked me on his shoulders, and we watched Parramatta play. And I think I went to the 81, 82 and 83 grand finals.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, and you know that you love a club when you get nervous before a game and you're not even playing. So it was a club that I always loved and always had dreams of being one of those players, and was lucky enough to be able to do that.
And then, obviously, out of those grand final winning teams, who were some of the players that you used to like watching play?
My favourite player was Brett Kenny. Okay. I used to love Brett. Yeah. And Sterlo and Zip Man, Stevie Ella, and all those fellas, Eric Grove. They were sort of the guys I remember fondly. And I guess as a dream, I was lucky enough as a kid that when I did get graded, some of those players were still there, and to be able to sort of kick a footy around and become mates with blokes that were my idols as kids, as a kid, was pretty special.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did you have to pinch yourself when you were in that same team?
Every day, mate, every day. It was, it's a dream to play for a club, but let alone the players you used to watch and idolise, to be able to, I remember one training session, that was in the days when you'd have 65 players running around all at the same time on a Saturday morning, and Sterlo kicked me the footy. I kicked it back to him, and then he kicked it back to me, and I thought, hang on, didn't know whether I was allowed to keep doing it or not. And I kept going. As long as he wanted to keep going, I would have stayed there all day. So it was, some great memories.
Nice. And then it must have been pretty awesome to be coached by Mick Cronin as well. What sort of a coach was Mick?
Yeah, look, Mick was great. Look, for me, I was only a young fella, and Bob O'Reilly was the reserve grade coach. And again, these were legends of the club. And look, Mick was a great coach. Mick didn't say a lot, but you knew that, when he did speak to you and what he said made a lot of sense and made you feel comfortable. Me being young, it was difficult at the time, but now you think about it when you've gone back into your own coaching, you can see the type of coach he was. And you don't need to say a hell of a lot to a player for it to mean something. So it was pretty special, mate, pretty special.
I couldn't imagine Mick would have a spray at him at all, would he? Being such a quiet, humble man.
He was humble, mate. He didn't really have a spray. No, not really. Neither did the Bear, really. I think they just had that awe about them of, that they knew what they were doing and they wanted you to do something. And we had, it wasn't the easiest times at that time when Mick was there. We weren't, that was when Sterlo had to retire and Brett was at the end of his career and a few of the other players retired. So we were quite a young footy team. And we're probably on the wrong end of it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But it was, for a lot of us, just wearing the jersey was more important than actually winning or losing at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of being a young kid, you were 17 when you made your debut against the Sharks at Para Stadium in a Friday night in front of 18,000 fans. What stands out for you of that debut game?
Oh, look, it was just, again, playing against the players I was playing against, it was, again, you see these guys and you don't, it's a weird feeling. You don't think you're
you're out there and you're sort of one of them, but you don't see yourself as one of them. We're playing against ET and Mark McGaw and Gavin Miller and all those sorts of players. And I guess it was just exciting for me. I just wanted to have a run and get tackled and just be out there. Look, it just felt like everything went so quick. It was like 100 mile an hour, and it was like I blinked and I missed it. I didn't get a lot of time that game. I came off the bench, but it was pretty special, very special.
Just speaking of the age factor, you made your debut at 17, and I think the NRL's got a rule these days that you've got to be 18. Do you think 18 is the right age, or do you think it's a case of every player take it on its merits?
No, look, I think, to be honest, if the way that I would coach these days, I would probably say that 17 is a bit too young.
Okay.
Not simply, it's most you're going to find the odd player that's physically going to be right to aim up against it, and I guess the right player that's mentally right as well. I think about it, probably wasn't strong enough mentally to understand what I was doing and what was going on. I guess that's an important part. I guess back then it was more, it was an opportunity. I think back then, for me, it was an opportunity where you could play, I think it was under 21s at the time or under 23s, and then you could play reserve grade and you could play first grade all on the same day.
Yeah, that's right.
Where you had that opportunity to be able to be given small doses of the senior footy without having to actually put a player in a situation where he's got to go out there and perform for 80 minutes. And I guess back then, when you followed a club and you followed a player, you got to see a player come through the ranks. So you knew he was a good player. So you weren't too hard on him when he came to the NRL, where there's so much expectation on these young players these days because there's only 30 blokes in the entire club, really, when it comes to that can play at that level on 1 year. And I think the expectation that if a kid goes out at 17 or 18 that he needs to be a superstar, and if he's not, everybody's giving him a hard time. And I think that's probably the unfair part. And, we didn't have social media or any of those sorts of things, but you had support around you, and an old bloke would come over and, coach and say, mate, great game, even if you didn't play one, where it's all about results today. So for me, 17 was great, and you're still going to have players in our game that, at the age of 17 and 18 are going to be ready.
Yep.
And some of them handle it a hell of a lot better than others, and some of them go on to become superstars of our game, and then others basically, battle through their careers. And I think that's the important part, to make sure that you're there for the long term, not just for 10 games and then you're out of there, and not to be judged on that.
Yep.
I guess that's the hardest part about footy in this current environment that it is at the moment.
This part of the chat was taken from episode 105 with Pat Richards. Is there a team that you followed in the early days there?
Mate, I probably wasn't the greatest supporter, to be honest. I literally went for everyone who was winning.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So through the 90s, Brisbane was doing really well. And I remember watching them and loved Alfie Langer. And I just used to float, but it wasn't until sort of I played a bit of junior reps under 12s, 13s at Parramatta that I sort of stuck with the Eels there for, I started going for the Eels then.
Who were some of the players that you used to love watching play and maybe wanted to play like?
One of my favourites would have been Eric Groth Senior.
Yep.
He was an absolute legend, and just still remember that try. I think it was against the Bulldogs where he beat about 7 blokes. He was just so hard to stop, and there wasn't really a winger like him back then, was there? So he was unreal. But that Parramatta era of those sides, Sterling and Kenny and Price, geez, they were awesome. But I also, and then growing up, probably a bit of Brad Fittler, Andrew Johns, those sort of guys as well. And like I said earlier, Alfie Langer, I did love Alf.
Yeah, no, champion players, all of those. And probably Eric Senior was probably the first sort of prototype for the big wingers that you see these days, wasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. Just the way he used to carry the footy. It was unreal. It was like a forward. Now look at the wingers these days. They're well over 110 kilos, some of them. So it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you make your way through the grades at Parramatta, and then eventually your first grade debut was against the Storm off the bench at Para Stadium. what was your debut like, and was first grade everything you thought it was going to be like?
Yeah, so I come off the bench. It was unlimited interchange back then. So I started off the bench, and I still remember standing on the sideline. It was probably about 5 minutes before half time, and I was thinking, I'm actually going to run on to Parramatta Stadium and become an NRL player and play like it's Stephen Kearney was. Still remember looking and going, I'm actually on the same field as Stephen Kearney. And it was amazing. And literally after 5 minutes, I've never been more tired in my life. It was like I literally didn't take a breath. I was running around like a headless chook because the game's a lot faster, but you're also just so excited.
Yeah.
So I got back in at half time, settled down, and we ended up having a win that night. And it was just an awesome experience to have my family there and to finally live a dream where you didn't think it was going to happen. Like I was only 18 at that stage. So 1 year out of school and playing NRL, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, being 18, you had the experienced guys like Jim Dimmick, Gary Larson, Dean Skiffeletti, Jason Smith, and also this week's guest, Dallas Weston. Was it those sort of guys that took you under their wings, being the young guy in the team?
Yeah, absolutely. You could say all of those guys were there. And even the younger guys who played a couple of years, like the Hindmarsh brothers and the Kalis brothers, Andrew Ryan was still there. Like, we had some really good guys there.
Yeah.
Brian Smith was an awesome coach, and he loved bringing kids through the system. So looking up to those guys like Gary Larson and those sort of fellas. Jim Dimmick, I really love playing with Jim.
Yep.
He just had so much skill and just, I think I still had a poster up on my wall from him, So at the same time, so it was a bit of a cool experience.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, in 2001 you played 10 games, but unfortunately missed the grand final versus Newcastle. How disappointing was that for you to miss the big one?
Yeah, well, when I debuted in 2000, I played the last sort of, it was 10 games or maybe 14 games, I think it was. And then I started 2001 and we're doing okay. And I played the first 10 games. Then I'd done my knee really bad against the Bulldogs. So I was out for 12 months and the boys just went on a massive run in 2001. I was playing some great footy, so it was tough to sit back and watch. It was also awesome to see because I think they scored, still to hold the record for most points in a season, that side. So it was unfortunate the boys couldn't get the grand final win against the Knights. But yeah, I was disappointed. My season was cut short for sure.
With the, do you think you would have made the grand final team having started those first 10 games in the season in 2001? Because there was a lot of competition for spots.
There was, yeah. We had some unreal wingers. Luke Burts, Scotty Donald, and those sort of guys. So it was definitely, I would have loved to have been in the conversation for sure. But you never know, do you? How things pan out. It was unfortunate. The injury was there. I was out for a full 12 months, but it took me a good couple of years to get over that injury. It's probably what led me to leave the club in the end.
Yeah, no, it was not a very good start, as you said, because of the injuries. Was it true that Brian Smith said maybe focus on your cricket career because you were unwanted at Parramatta after 2003?
Oh, the story goes a bit like that. It's not really the case.
Yeah.
Sort of the last year when I was sort of looking, when I was off contract, Smithy did get me in. He just said sort of, because I was coming off that injury in a couple of years, was tough to get going again. It was one thing after the other. So the knee, I'd have to get another clean out. I just couldn't get my leg right. And he did offer me like a small term, sort of just a 1 year sort of thing.
Okay.
But I just didn't feel like, I don't know, I felt like I just needed a change. It wasn't about anything else. I did love my time at the Eels. I had a meeting with Tim Sheens as well, and I suppose just the way he spoke about the game and what he was talking about, and things he saw in my game, I just felt a bit more confident. And I needed a fresh change. That's why I decided to go to the Tigers.
This part of the chat was taken from episode 93 with Tim Smith. He's at the Eels as a 20-year-old kid. Who were the players that sort of took you under their wings?
Oh, mate, I think at that age I was pretty hard to tame.
Okay. Yep.
I was a bit of a wild child. But,
we had some good leaders. We had Nath Kalis. Hindy was there, obviously. We had Daniel Wagon, Michael Vella. There was a lot of guys there that were, sort of in their late 20s. They'd gone through it. And that first year, 05, we had a very good side. And, we were very lucky. We trained hard and we played hard. And, we got all the way through to the prelim, but we couldn't go that extra step. But you know what? It was a really good time in my footy career that first year, especially at Parramatta.
Yeah, no, it was a cracker of a year, and I've actually just got another listener question from E. Growth Jr. of Parramatta, and I'm assuming it's your great mate, the big guru, Eric Growth, who you formed a great combination with, but he asked, why did you kick the ball too hard in that prelim final?
Oh, that must be him, huh?
Yeah.
No, we have a little chat about that whenever we did. For probably the next 3 years while I was there, we spoke about that kick nearly every week. It was probably, he reckons it was 2 inches too big, but I reckon he had to jump. So I blame him for the loss in the prelim.
Yeah, well, he thinks if you kicked it less harder, he scores in the corner and you guys make the grand final. But he also asks, are you still a turtle? That sounds like an interesting story.
Yeah. I don't actually know why he started calling me that. I think he thought I had a really small head, and they used to call me wobblehead as well.
Okay.
He reckons I moved it around. I could never sit still. So, mate, there was a few nicknames getting around for me in those first years at Para.
Nah, that sounds cool. Now, well, let's get to that 2005 season, and you make your first grade debut against the Tigers in round one. What stood out for you on that day?
Oh, mate, just, that was always my dream, to play first grade. And, and I got lucky enough to do it at Para, and I got to play, I think it was at Stadium Australia when I played the first one against the Tigers. And, I just remember being so much quicker, but, I really enjoyed it. I remember my family flew down as well.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it was just happened so quick, as I said, it was a dream. And then when you get there and that actually happens, and it goes, you've got 80 minutes and it just goes so quick, but we were lucky enough to get a win and, I played okay as well. So I was just very, very happy with being there, I suppose.
Well, all throughout that season, you had a cracker of a season having 40 try assists as well, which is unbelievable. And you also win the Dally M Rookie of the Year in 2005. No doubt that ranks pretty high and special in your career.
Yeah, I think, as I said, that 05 year, we had a very good side. We were blessed to have a lot of guys that were playing good footy. But yeah, for myself, I really, I suppose I sort of hit the ground running, and as you said, with those accolades, with the rookie and those try assists, they were just, I was lucky a lot of the time because I had such a good side. But we put in a lot of work. We had Smithy as our coach that year, who was, he was a very good coach, very good for me early in my career. Yeah, a really good time, something that I can look back on now, being a bit older, and just really appreciate that I got the chance to be there, I suppose, in that year.
What was Brian Smith like for you on the field and maybe off it as well? How did he compare to, say, the other coaches that you had, like Michael Hagan, Ricky Stewart and Brian Noble, just to name a few?
Yeah, I think, Smithy was really good for me early on. He was sort of a master of the game. Everything was very technical. But also he let me just play what was in front of me. And I think that was the best thing for me. I liked having structure, but I also wanted to play outside of that as well. And, he gave me the chance to do that, especially with the players we had. I just had to fire the ball out to guys like Tamana and that. And they just wanted early ball.
Yep.
So I think, as I said, I was very lucky to play with some good players, but I also, I got to do sort of what I liked, I suppose, in some regards, to play an eyes-up footy.
Yeah, nice. Now, with everything going so well that year and some in the media and possibly fans as well having the comparisons to Peter Sterling, who some would say should be an immortal of the game, how did you handle that pressure? And did you feel that pressure as well?
I think in that first year I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I was just the new kid on the block, and I didn't really read into it too much. I was just playing footy. It was like I was playing up on the coast in the under-17s with me mates. That's what it was like. But as that second year and even down in my career, I let that get to me too much. I was my own worst critic. It didn't matter so much what everyone else was saying. Obviously, the media and that were giving it to me a fair bit. But looking back, I think it was more myself and putting the pressure on myself more so.
Okay.
Obviously, when I came out, the media was relentless. But looking back now, as a 37-year-old, back at that player, I think it was more myself. I just wasn't right. Further on down the track, but we live and we learn, mate. We just keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, these days we see it at Parramatta, a lot of social media comments about Jake Arthur, the son of Brad, who was a young halfback at Parramatta, and saying that he isn't ready for first grade. Social media probably wasn't as big in your days as it is now, but as a former halfback handling pressure at Parramatta, how did you know that you were ready for the week-to-week grind of first grade?
Well, I think for me, Smithy didn't bring me in too early. I think I come in at the right time. As I said, I had the right team around me.
Yep.
If I would have come in a year or two earlier, I reckon, I probably would have got caught out a little quicker. You know what I mean? I think I was very lucky with that side, but there's always going to be pressure. If you play in the 7 jersey, it doesn't matter whether you play at Canberra or Newcastle.
Yep.
But with those comparisons with those guys that have played before you, they're guys that are great, and Sterlo, well, he won 4 premierships. So, obviously you're going to get compared to guys like that. But I think, now the social media, it's relentless. I think, I would have struggled big time this time around. But as I said, looking back, I think it was more myself. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a tough one now with all these number 7s going around.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what were your favourite memories of playing at the Eels, either on the field or off it? Was there anything that really stands out?
I think, that obviously that first year, I just enjoyed everything off the field. Everything it just clicked. But also that third year at Para that I played, I think it was 07.
Okay, yep.
We did really well that year. We sort of had to grind it through, but we got down to, I think we played Melbourne down there, and we only just lost. So yeah, we had some good years. I don't think we missed the finals the whole time, but we just could never make that last crack. We just sort of crumbled under the pressure, I suppose. But hopefully this year the Eels, might get that premiership we were after.
Yes, hopefully. It's been too long, 36 years. But how do you rank the Para fans from your time? Do they come close to the English crowds? As the English crowds can be pretty passionate and create a great atmosphere as well.
Yeah, no, mate. Every time back then when you ran out to Para Stadium, it was like there was 50,000. And, we'd only have 20,000, I think, back then. But I just loved playing there. It was electric, the atmosphere, and because we were doing so well, there wasn't a spare seat in the house. But obviously, the English as well, mate. They're the exact same. They are very passionate. Especially when we were at Wigan, they love their footy there. But yeah, I think the best sort of highlight for me was definitely running out at Para Stadium each week in front of those home fans.
This part of the podcast was taken from episode 116 with Lee Oudenryn.
Both wingers got injured.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So I got on and, just did my best. And they virtually, Ron Massey came down and I scored like a couple of tries and they signed me on the spot.
Oh, perfect.
so that's how it all kick-started. And, then, just went from there.
The rest is history. Could you believe as a young 22-year-old that you're in the same team as Parramatta royalty in Brett Kenny and being coached by the Crow, Mick Cronin?
Yeah, it was. Everything went so fast, and I was so immature. Like, I look back on my time in rugby league, and I wasn't only really green and new to football, which showed obviously a lot when I played, but I don't know, I was so naive and immature. And it didn't really click until now I look back and I've got a better perspective about all that time that I played.
Yeah. What was Mick Cronin like as a coach? Because it was struggle times in those early 90s, and he was obviously a Parramatta legend, and I'm assuming he'd be like a quiet, humble coach.
Yeah, he's a champion guy, as everyone would probably say. Hey, I'm not the person that could probably rate coaches. I would say, Mick and all the coaches that I had, they all did their best. I didn't find any issues with Mick. The only issue in most of the times in the years that I played was with me and not the coaches. They're all good in their own way. I know Mick had that personality that everyone kind of warmed to, and that's probably how he got the best out of the players.
And what are your memories of your debut game against the Roosters at the old Sydney Football Stadium?
Yeah, that was probably one of the games you always remember you first, I guess. Peter Sterling actually came down. He got injured the game before I made my debut.
Okay, yeah.
Against St George. I think it was against St George. I think he did his shoulder. But he went straight into commentary, and he came into the change rooms, I know, after the game, and he congratulated me, and he said that's one of the best debuts I've seen. So
how did that make you feel, Parramatta legend saying that?
Yeah, I was pretty stoked, because all I ever wanted to do, when I decided that I wanted to try to make it into grade football, I made a decision that I was going to chase it. My goal was only to play one game.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I managed to get a reserve grade game in, and then I set a new goal. I want to play a first grade game. So it was an achievement that I always look back on, and something that I'm proud of. Like Jared Hayne, obviously in the NFL, everyone could say, he didn't make it, but he did. He did make it. He played NFL football, something that he can always treasure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Massive achievement. I mean, I haven't played first grade. You have, so any first grader who plays even one game, it's a massive achievement. So, that's great. We've just seen the new Sydney Football Stadium open up, which is now Allianz Stadium. I think 3 weeks ago. What are your favourite memories of playing at the old Sydney Football Stadium?
I always liked playing there. It was a really good ground. It was always a fast track. It drained well. So probably not a great deal of strong victories or anything. There was some lean years there at Parramatta when I was around. But I guess any of these games that you play, you got to look back and just be glad that you experienced that.
Yeah. In those early days, who were the older players that took you under their wings?
I know, like you mentioned previously, we had Brett Kenny and we had Mark Laurie when I played. And while at Parramatta there, we had some other players, experienced players, come along as well, in the likes of Paul Dunn and a few other players, Mark Horo, players like that were experienced. So, Scotty Marn and a few of them players, Shane Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yep. So there was a number of players that had, Michael Speechley was another one that comes to mind. They were all good blokes, good players, and were doing their best,
Yeah, no, definitely some great names there. Now, as we just said, that 1992 season was a little bit of a lean season, but there was but when you talk to older Eels fans like myself, there's two highlights that stand out definitely to us and probably to yourself as well. The first one was a victory against the Great Britain side, touring side. That was pretty well stacked with names such as Gary Connolly, Gary Schofield, Sean Edwards, Dennis Betts, Phil Clark, just to name a few, and the other one was Martin Auvaa. Now, before we get to the sprint race, after only playing 5 games of first grade, what was it like playing against an international team?
Yeah, it was all like mind-blowing stuff for me then. I had so much going on. I look back now and everything seemed to happen so quickly. I made it into grade football, made it into reserve grade. 3 games later, they said, listen, we've got another couple of wingers injured as well, and Ericsson and Scott Marr, Michael Ericsson. Yep. We're going to thrust you in first grade. And I was thinking, geez, am I ready for this? So it was just, I don't know. I guess I just took it in my stride. And then when they said, we're playing Great Britain, it was going to be playing against some of these guys best in the UK or in England. It was, it was pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, no, speaking to Shane Flanagan and Stu Galbraith for the podcast, they were heaps excited to play in that game and to get the victory as well against, as I said, a stacked team. It was an amazing night. And now to the much publicised and talked about sprint race versus Martin. I know probably everyone talked to you about it, and why how and why you beat rugby league's fastest man at the time. What is your take on that run, and is that the fastest that you've ever ran?
Well, a lot of people ask me about that race, and in particular, I don't know if you know, but my background was athletics. Like I said, I was like a jack of all sports, but not very good at schooling, but knew when all the sports carnivals were on, and mainly the athletics stuff. Like every year I would make it to the state final in athletics right through end of high school. So I remember when I broke into rugby league, Scotty Marn came up to me and remembered me from Little Athletics.
Oh, okay.
He said, I didn't know him because he goes, you used to win always the sprints, and I'd always be, his aspirations were to beat me.
Okay, yeah.
So in the athletics side of things, and then you've got a lot of people saying that it was rigged or something went on there, Martin Auvaa through the race, and there was bets, and I think that's all a load of BS, to be honest. I was always pretty slow out of the blocks, so our head conditioner or head trainer was Rob Rowland-Smith back then. Oh,
yes, the great man, yeah.
And I told him, because when they asked me, they said, how do you feel about we're going to put this race on, the curtain raiser at half-time? We want you to race Martin Auvaa. And I read up about him and, and knew what a try-scoring machine he was and how fast he was. And there was talk that he was just outside Olympic qualifying times and all this stuff. And all I wanted to do was not embarrass the club and the fans. And so my goal was just to do as best I could. So I had a chat with Rob Rowland-Smith and I said, hey, mate, I'm very slow out of the blocks. And I think it was his idea. He said, well, we'll do some training on the starts. That's pretty simple. So we did some training on the starts, and that's why when I shot out of the blocks, people said I jumped the start. But I knew, because I was training with him being the starter, so I knew when the gun was going to go.
Yeah.
So I got that start, and I just held on to that, it. And a little thing for you is about 12 months ago, I think it was 12 months ago. So Martin Auvaa had a podcast, and they were asking similar sorts of questions, and it brought up that he had this race, and he said, listen, let's face it, and no disrespect to Martin Auvaa, he was fantastic, better than me, like played so many games, scored so many tries, but I think he still had that bad taste in his mouth, because he said, let's face it, if Lee Oudenryn hadn't beat me in that race, no one would know who Lee Oudenryn was. And I agree with him, probably correct. And he said, if you watch the game that Parramatta won, I scored a couple of tries against him as well. And if you watch the game too, just because he scored the tries, it was cut back in by the centre, turned Martin Fire back inside. Yeah. So he went back infield. Yeah. I had to turn and chase, but he wasn't actually straight on marking me when he scored those tries. So after he said that podcast, one of my mates went onto his Instagram and said, hey, you seemed still pretty irked about that race back in 92 with one of my good friends, Leap and Lee Oudenryn. And he goes, and in the message he goes, I actually spoke to Lee Oudenryn and he told me that he beat you fair and square that night and he would do it right now as well. Put your money where your mouth is. Next minute, a promoter got online and contacted Martin Fire and he put them onto his managers and it was all ready to kick off for another reunion last year.
Yeah.
And Martin Fire apparently said he wanted £10,000. He wanted flights and they were going to set up a luncheon and do all that stuff. And then a couple of weeks after that, he got in touch with that promoter and he said, I need some more time to think about it. And I can understand that because I started training. I've been trying to keep fit and all that. And do you think I could not get an injury? So I was the first one to put my hand up. Thank God that didn't happen. He probably would have beat me anyway because he looks super fit for his age. Yeah.
I tell you what, I think all the fans would love to see that. I mean, we could get you to Combank Stadium and half-time during a main game. We could get it all happening. It'd be certainly a great thing for the fans, I reckon.
I would disagree on that, Troy, mate. I think they'd rather see, like these two old guys. I think I would even rather see people like Addo Carr and Saab and all that race off,
Have you ever spoken to Martin about it at all? Himself?
No, I just know after the game he was running. When he finished, he was swearing a bit, I know a mate did. One of the guys I played with, I think it was Josh White.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Josh White, spoke to him overseas about it.
This part of the podcast was taken from episode 91 with John Simon. Sorry to bring this question up for you, but Parramatta made the finals in 98, and for me and many a Para fan, that 98 prelim final is a nightmare. I've spoken to a few of your former teammates, including Aaron Raper and Paul Carriage, about that game. But for you, what do you think went wrong, and what was the turning point in that game?
Obviously, that's been brought up on numerous occasions by mates and other people and everything since that time. I really think it's sort of hard to say. I think the Bulldogs sort of gained momentum towards that back of the game, and it was almost like we didn't know how to stop it. I think we got 12 points up, and I missed a field goal. I got charged down. Had a couple of shots at field goal, missed the field goal with about 7 or 8 minutes to go. And I think at that point we were up by 10 points or 12 points, and then and that would have made 13. And then I got taken off, and in that next 3 to 4 minute period, I scored 2 tries. And all of a sudden, I get put back on with a couple of minutes to go, and all scores were all level. But I think by that stage, I think the Bulldogs had just gained so much momentum, and I think as a side when we're playing, we just didn't know how to sort of wrestle that sort of momentum back.
Yeah.
And and obviously, I think everyone knows what action Paul Carriage did with that last play, and then all of a sudden we thought we lost in regular time. With that potential field wasn't to be. I think it was definitely I could definitely put it down to that being the case. They just had the momentum, and we just didn't know how to stop it.
Yeah, no, it was certainly a strange game, and it's one of my games that I dislike. That and the 2001 Grand Final, I don't watch them. Whenever it's on the TV, I flick off. So, what were your favourite memories of playing at the Eels, either on the field or off it?
Oh, I think I really enjoyed playing with the guys. That's at that when I first came, it was full-time professionalism was relatively new. So I think it, and basically we would, it was treated as sort of like a day job. We'd start training, early in the morning and sort of train all day, train in the morning and have sort of an hour, 2 hour lunch break, and then we train again in the afternoon. And that was sort of most of the week, probably at least 4 times during the week. But that was sort of special. Obviously, personally, getting to play Origin again and my one game for Australia, that was pretty special. But definitely sort of obviously, and I mingling with the supporters. I think after each game, we obviously head back to the Leagues Club, particularly at Parramatta Stadium at the time.
Yep.
And mingling with the fans, the diverse range of fans that the club has, and you just sort of understanding their passion and their love for the club. Obviously, if you didn't play too well and you got beat, they, would sort of have a few sort of disappointing words for you. But whenever there was a win, you couldn't wipe the smile off their faces. It's whilst obviously we ultimately play the sport for our own sort of enjoyment and professionally, obviously for a career, that you can't discount. Playing when you do play for the clubs, the supporters, that you play for, because obviously that when you do play, they build the atmosphere at the grounds, and you probably notice obviously during the COVID time when there was no crowds, I think they would play fake crowds over the loudspeakers, and it still wasn't the same.
No, definitely
not. There's that element that sort of really makes it a spectacle for yourself and a great thing to be part of. And even obviously when you're at other clubs and you're playing at their home ground and there's a capacity crowd, that just playing in front of those crowds just sort of makes it special.
Back to this part of the podcast was taken from episode 110 with Isaac de Gois. The Eels, and one player that you played with and a crowd favourite and still playing over in the UK is Fuifu Moimoi. What was he like as a teammate?
Oh wow, big Fui. So I only played with Fui. So he left the Eels in 14 from memory, I think, at the end of 14. So I only had half a year with him, with Big Fui, but he was a great person to play with. I hated playing against him. He was a bloody rock of a thing, wasn't he?
Oh, definitely.
But he was great, Fui. He was just a laid back, very relaxed, calm human being. But when it came to game time, he kind of switched on and he knew what he had to do for his teammates and for the club. He's a great person, mate. Is he still playing? Did you say he's still playing?
Yeah, I think he's still playing for like a Division 3 team over in England, I think. Yeah, still running around, yeah.
Is he? Well, he's got to be 50 years old now, isn't he? Surely.
I don't know. That's always the guess, isn't it, about what's on his birth certificate and how old he says he is. I don't know. It's always a common joke around ex-teammates. But the other player I want to talk to you about, and we see current day, we see Micah Sivo smashing it at the Eels on the wing there. But you had another Fijian on the wing out there at Parramatta, and Semi Radradra, scoring some awesome tries. What was he like to play with?
Oh, mate, he was, by far the best winger I've ever played with in any club. He's an absolute freak. You can see what he does. He can turn a game around within the blink of an eye. There's a few games that you could just... I mean, I remember one game in particular we were playing against Souths, and it was a close game, and, we're absolutely out on our feet, and they've kicked down to his corner, and he's just picked it up. He skipped through, 3 or 4 blokes and kind of weaved his way through the middle, and once he went past that 40-metre line, I kind of knew he was going to score. I just kind of knew, and it's a great feeling when you've got someone in your side like him who can just do special things out of nowhere. It's an absolute, it's something special, and he's a great person. He's an absolute, and he works so hard. He works so hard at training. Like, he's one of those guys who consistently after every session he would hang around half an hour and just work on his catching, work on his bombs, work on his dummy half passing. He works hard in the gym, and he's just, like I said, he's a great bloke. So like I said, to play with, he's an absolute beast of a human, and I don't know how old he is, but I'd love to see him back in the blue and gold, mate. I really would.
How good would it be to see Michael on one wing and Semi on the other?
Oh, mate, it'll be all time.
Yeah, definitely. I think I remember the try that you're talking about, and I think I remember Sterlo in the commentary. He's like, "Oh, don't pass it, just keep running." That was a great try. That was a great try. Now, when we're recording this, we've just seen Parramatta beat Melbourne to gain a top 4 spot in the competition, and the coach is obviously Brad Arthur. How did you find Brad as a coach, and do you think he's the right coach to take Parramatta to that next step, and can we win the competition this year?
Definitely can win the competition with Brad. I think Brad is he's a great coach. He's got a wealth of experience in the game. When I first was coached by him, he taught me a lot of things as a senior player too. When I came there, that he opened my eyes up to a lot of things. And again, Brad had really good assistant coaches at the time, and he's still got Steve Murphy there, who's a great assistant coach, and I definitely truly believe, mate, he's the man that can get us that premiership this year. He knows how to make the Eagles tick. He's definitely got the squad to do it. So there's no reason why we can't have it this year, mate. Obviously in the past, when you look at last year and the year before, and I don't want to harp on it, but I think we were robbed against the Storm. Against the Panthers last year.
Yep.
And I think, when you even go back to 2017, mate, when we played the Storm up there, we were bloody robbed that game too. So he's definitely the man to do the job with the current club he's got, mate. And I mean, I don't want to speak too early, but looking at the way we've been playing the last month, everyone stays healthy. We're going to give this 22 season a real good shake and good crack at it.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, obviously, all the coaches are different in their coaching styles that everyone has. I mean, you had Tim Sheens, you had Ricky Stewart, Brian Smith. How does Brad compare to those sort of coaches, or are they just all completely different?
Oh, mate, they're all, like I said, they're all completely different. You got, Sticky, who's like, he's like what you see on TV. He's passionate. He shows his emotion, and he was, like I said to you earlier, he was great for me as a young man coming through the game. He knew how to make me tick and get my head switched on. And Brian Smith, he's got all the smarts. Really knowledgeable man. He taught you things that you just didn't think were possible. Brad Arthur, another very, very smart man. And what Brad's got, and I think what Brad's got more than the other coaches I've been coached by, is a real kind of good people's person. You can go up as a player and have a yarn to him, whether it be about if you're struggling with your family life or whatever it may be, and he's really easy to kind of take it all in and let you know his thoughts. But mate, collectively, like I said, all coaches are different in their own ways, and every coach that I was coached by, and I was lucky I was coached by so many, great coaches. They're all different in their own ways, but they're all so good for you as an individual. Yeah. In any aspect, if you take it all in, if you want to learn, any coach will want to help you learn and want to make you improve on the football field and also off the football field. So it's, I'm very fortunate enough to, like I said, be coached by some great coaches. As you just mentioned, there's names.
This part of the podcast was taken from episode 86 with Justin Horo. Sort of a coincidental sort of story, your debut, because your dad made his debut against the West Magpies, and you make your debut against the West Tigers. It's pretty coincidental. What do you remember about your debut game? Did you think first grade was what it was going to be like?
Yeah, for sure. I remember the one thing that stands out is that we gave away. Obviously, a lot of the times you come on, it's during defence, as you'll notice. In attack. But I sort of just got subbed on, on the fourth tackle. I think they were bringing Brendan Oak off, and then so I went straight into defence. As the changeover happens, you sort of get ready just to defend. And I remember, someone gave away a penalty on the fourth tackle, and I was absolutely gassed. I think, when you get out there, you've got all this energy, and I try to make. I think I made 2 or 3 tackles back to back in a row, and then someone gave away a penalty on the fourth, and I remember just going, I don't think I'm going to be able to last. I don't think I'm going to be able to hang on. Yeah. Luckily we did. I don't think we let them try. It was against the Tigers. They beat us. But one of the things that stood out for me from the game is I think the first person I tackled was Lottie Takiri, and obviously watching him for a long time. The one thing I took out of it was actually wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. When you watch these guys, you obviously put players on a pedestal, and when I got into contact, I was like, all right. This is a bit like reserve grade, but probably just these guys feel a little bit stronger, but I feel like I can hold my own. So those were some of the things that I remember from the debut game.
You mentioned there you're a little bit gassed. Your dad thought he saw you warm up about 4 or 5 times. He thought you were going to be buggered by the time you got on the field.
Yeah, mate. Like before, at the start of your career, you warm up as much as you can. You're keen as you want to show the coaches you're ready to go. But by the end of your career, they'll tell you to go have a warm up, and you'll hold it as long as you can. Yeah. You don't want to. That just comes with experience. You've been out there. You know what to expect. You're just trying to save the legs. That's one thing you just don't realise as a kid. It's always good to show good energy, but trying to conserve your energy and make sure you're ready to go when you get on the field is important. So finding a good balance somewhere in the middle of that is probably the right way to warm up.
Yeah, for sure. Was it the old heads at Parramatta that took you under their wings, so to speak? Yeah, Nathan Kalis, Birdie, Hindy, when you first started?
Yeah, those boys are really good. Yeah, so I come through with some really strong leaders and some really, really good, talented players for Parramatta. Those guys, it was funny for me because Dad played NRL. I sort of wasn't. I was around the Parramatta system, and Dad was coaching and also looking after players that had played first grade. I had a handful of players in the team that I went to school with.
Yep.
So the transition was a little bit easier for me in the sense where, and I'd been around the full-time squad for about 3 years.
Okay.
So by the time I actually made my debut, I felt really comfortable with all the players, but always got along with them all. Had a pretty cool, funny relationship with Hindy. Really got along with Hindy. He was. We had Nath, who was our skipper in the first year in 2010, and then Hindy took over. Those were some tough years, 2011 and 12. But I always thought, Hindy always stayed the same, which I appreciated about. And you sort of see that that larrikin side now that we see on TV. Another guy who was really big for me was Tamana Tahu. Because I would come on and play on the left edge, and Tamana was our left centre at the time. And then just being from New Zealand Māori descent himself, just, naturally you look to those guys, they know a little bit more about your culture and your heritage and all that sort of thing. So he always gave me a lot of confidence, Tamana, whether I played he always made me feel like I belonged there, which was yeah. And then also the way he'd protect me defensively, he was a really good defender. So I enjoyed playing with him and him playing on the left edge with me for sure.
Yeah, he certainly was an excitement machine when he was at Para. I used to love watching him in the centres there, and the big crossbar salute for the try. It was great.
Yeah, unreal. He was so strong and so quick, mate.
Now, this part of the podcast was taken from episode 103 with Dallas Weston. As a young 22-year-old, could you believe that you were in the same team as Parramatta royalty in Brett Kenny and also being coached by Parramatta royalty in the Crow, Mick Cronin?
Yeah, no, it was a little bit surreal. It was a bit of a whirlwind. Obviously, I didn't start too many games in the 21s, and it was actually my last year when in the 21s. I got to play a little bit of reserve grade, which was coached by Bob O'Reilly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I found him really good. Give me sort of a bit of confidence there with playing a few games under him, and then got called up in a trial against Balmain at Leichhardt Oval, and then bit nervous to say the least, sort of thing. Obviously, playing against a few legends, were still playing for the Tigers then, like Ciro, big Paul Sirenen, and no, it was good. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience.
It must have been pretty sort of awesome to play against one of your early childhood heroes in Ciro.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I think I was probably packing it a little bit, but but no, it was good. It was, it's obviously you prepare yourself well with all the training you do. So obviously you're not going to get put in that position if the coach like Mick Cronin, and I think Ron Massey was there at that time as well. If they don't think you can sort of do that sort of job, I don't think they'll throw you in there. But no, it was good. It's really good.
What was Mick Cronin like as a coach? Because it was a little bit of a struggle for himself and the team to get success in those early 90s. And, sometimes ex-legends of the game don't necessarily make good coaches. What was Mick like?
Look, I can't sort of... That's a long time ago for me.
Yep.
But, from what I can remember, my experience, Mick was quite good. He was very quiet man, very good as a coach. I think Ron Massey was there, obviously, as well, basically you could say now as assistant coach, sort of thing. But, from my memories, like I said, it was a long time ago.
Yep.
But, he was quite good, like a quiet man. He sort of never got too wound up or anything like that. But no, he obviously helped me out, obviously a lot coming in. As like you said, as a 22-year-old.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine Mick having a spray in him at halftime or anything like that, being such a quiet and humble man. So. Legend. What are your memories of your debut game against Penrith, up at Penrith, that actually resulted in a win via a field goal from Tolson Tollett?
Oh, mate, geez, you got a better memory than me, Troy. Mate, from what it was just, that whole, everything was happening so quick. Obviously, coming into first grade, and I had some good players there. In Paul Dunn was probably a bit of a mentor coming up there playing. He was like a senior player there, and the other senior players, I think it was Brett Kenny, sort of started off the year but ended up retiring sort of mid-year due to injury. But just having, blokes like Cameron Blair, Mark Horo, the blokes that have obviously played a few games and, sort of give you that confidence.
welcome back, and thanks for listening to that collaboration episode of the best of the Eels players that I've had on the podcast in season 2022. I hope you really enjoyed that sort of format, and reliving some of those conversations, those podcast chats that we had with those Eels players. Stuart Kelly, Kirisome Auvaa, David Penna, Pat Richards, Tim Smith, Lee Oudenryn, John Simon, Isaac de Gois, Justin Horo, and Dallas Weston. Once again, I thank all those guys, those legends, for their time when we had their respective chats. I really enjoyed them. And if you want to hear the full episodes of those chats, just head back to the episode list on your podcast listening platform. Search the Para Cave podcast and you will see those lists of the episodes. Or also you can look back at this week's promotional video as well. It has the pictures of the respective episodes as well, so you can check out which episode it is on there. So that will be on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So check that one out. Once again, a quick shout out and thanks to Jack's Pale Ale, the fantastic major sponsor of this podcast, for supporting the podcast. Available to purchase in the club shop and online. It is perfect for that Eels fan or beer lover. So head to www.parramattaleagues.com.au and check that out and get some Jack's Pale Ale today. Thanks also to co-sponsor Shannon Cooney from the Merrick Property Group, who you hear at the top of the podcast each and every week. Contact Shannon for all your Penrith and Lower Blue Mountains real estate needs, either buying or selling. Also, as I mentioned as well, the Stubby Club as well. Thank you for your support of the podcast. Don't forget, head to www.thestubbyclub.com.au and order your NRL merchandise today. Yeah, they've got some fantastic products there. Check that out. A huge range of sports merch. Don't forget, use your Paracave discount code at checkout for a 10% off your purchases. And also share your pictures of your purchases on the Paracave podcast socials as well. Would love to see you guys, the listeners, using that discount code, getting some sports merch, getting some NRL merch or whichever merchandise you get from there, and post it on the Paracave podcast socials sites, and would love to see what you guys are getting. And also to Bo Cook from Low Market. Once again, his contact number is 0401 213 236. Get in contact with him for a free chat and see how he and his team can help you get on top of your home loan and financials and find you that best deal. Please support these businesses that support the podcast, that help bring you quality entertainment each week, and also share the love on socials as well. Thank you to you, the listeners, for listening to my Eels 2023 NRL season release draw, the live first reaction of me looking at the draw online when it was released on the Thursday, and also listening to the Paras Eels Army Facebook page live chat that I had with the fans and get their thoughts on the NRL draw for the Eels next year as well. I really appreciate that. Thank you for listening to that. And again, if it's something that a format that you enjoyed listening to, might even next season get into doing some Facebook lives or doing some Instagram lives and recording them as a podcast, and get you, the listeners, the fans, involved in that chat. So thank you once again for listening to that. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and then as soon as it drops, you'll be able to listen to it. Encourage your family and friends to do the same as well. Any support will be most appreciated. Also, thank you once again to the official media partner of the podcast, the Parramatta Times. For all your local Parramatta news, simply head to www.parramattatimes.com.au and check that out for all the Parramatta news, the local news. In the meantime, stay safe wherever you are listening from in this world of ours. Congratulations to the Australian Kangaroos in the men's side of the World Rugby League World Cup for winning the World Cup against Samoa on the weekend. Congratulations to the Australian Jillaroos as well for winning the Women's World Cup. And congratulations to England for winning the Physical Disability World Cup and also the Wheelchair Rugby League World Cup. So congratulations to all those teams for winning their respective World Cups. Footy's over for another season, another year in 2022. Speaking of that World Cup, thank you to all the listeners that I have from the USA, UK, New Zealand, Ireland, France, and of course the Aussie listeners as well that make up the majority of the listeners for the podcast. I really appreciate your support. And if you like what I'm doing, if you like the content, if you like listening to the podcast each week, please leave a comment where you're listening from on a review. Please give a 5-star rating and review as well. That would be most appreciated. Have a great week as best you can. And I'll catch you next week. Next week will be the final week of the podcast for season 2022. It's going to be a bit of a collaboration again of the other guests that I had on the podcast during the year that played for other clubs as well. So we've done this one with the collaboration of the Eels Players. Next week will be the best of the rest, so to speak, from players that played at other clubs as well. So tune in for that one. That will be the season ending one. Next year we're going to have some different sort of content coming through, so stay tuned for that one. But that's next year anyway, so stay tuned for next week's episode, the last episode of the podcast for season 2022. But again, if you want to, by all means, please send me a DM on socials. Go ahead. I'm always up for a chat about the greatest game of all, rugby league, and also, of course, the Parramatta Eels as well. Or if you just simply want to send me a message about who you would like to see come on the podcast for a chat, send me a message, tell me who it is, and I'll see if I can get them on for next year. But to sign off the show, and as I always say, the Para Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!